Welcome back to the Football Fitness Federation podcast. This is episode 95. I'm joined today by Jack Ferguson, the head of sports science, head of academy sports science at Kilmarnock. Jack, how are you doing?
Yeah, not bad, Ben. Thanks for having us on.
No problem, mate. Cheers for coming on. I know we've got some good stuff to talk about, and especially anyone that is in and around the sort of master's process at this time or possibly in the future. I think this is definitely an episode for people like that, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I've just recently come at the end of my master's programme myself, along with working full-time in the industry. So it'd be good to share my experiences and some of the stuff I've went through along the way so far.
Yeah, awesome, mate. And we're gradually working our way through all the attendees of the Celtic network meeting as well. So you were up there with us at Celtic, and seems like quite a while ago now, doesn't it? But it's not too long ago with Jack and Ollie. So how did you find the evening up at Celtic?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. It was my first network meeting, I think. Was that your first one up in Scotland, north of the border?
Yeah.
It was enjoyable. Met a lot of good people up there as well. It was a busy night. I don't know how long it will be before something like that can go occur again, obviously with the current circumstances. But yeah, it was a great night, and I would strongly recommend to anyone that can get to a long one if it's in your local area.
Yeah, we're on hold with them at the moment, but obviously as soon as we get the green light to do it, we'll be up there again, because it was a great evening, some great conversations, and some top coaches turned up to the night as well, which we're working through on the podcast, which is awesome. So,
yeah, thoroughly enjoyed.
Awesome, mate. So let's dive into you, Jack. I've just mentioned your role, head of academy sports science at Kilmarnock, but do you want to just take us back to your education and then take us through your career so far?
Yep, no worries at all. So when I first left, I'll go all the way back to the end of high school, I knew I wanted to go into some sort of sport-related degree. I'd never really had sort of sports science, strength and conditioning on my mind originally. So I done the BSc in Sport and Physical Activity at the University of Strathclyde here in Glasgow, it had lots of different sort of sports science, S&C modules, if you like. Physiology, biomechanics, and even a bit of sports psychology, nutrition. But what I also had was a sort of sports coaching element to it, which allowed us to work with young people in a variety of different sports and work on regressions and progressions and how to organise a session, which probably benefited me in the long run, working within the academy on pitch with the young players. It was into the third year of my honours degree. We had to go get some work experience in a sort of the industry you could see yourself going into after your degree. I got in touch with Andy White, who was the first team sports scientist at Kilmarnock at the time. I was very fortunate enough to be offered sort of work experience down there. And that just involved me going down to Kilmarnock once, twice a week and kind of shadowing Andy and the team there and what he kind of did with the first team. Thrown in the deep end, I think on my first or second day, Andy had me in the Cairo chamber with one of the first team boys. So that was a good experience. So I'd done that from the January to the end of that season. Thoroughly enjoyed it. So I was then going into the fourth year of my honours, and Andy put me in contact with Cammy McDermott, who was the head of academy sports science at Kilmarnock at the time. Met Cammy, and for another season worked alongside Cammy, in the academy, 3 nights a week. Sort of delivering pitch sessions, gym sessions, planning sessions, doing a bit of testing, growth and maturation, data collection with the boys there at the academy. After I finished my honours, I wanted to go and do a master's, but I was unsure whether I was going to go and do like an MSc, a top master's, again, more of what I'd done before, sort of lectures, stuff like that. But there was the opportunity at Kilmarnock to do a Masters of Philosophy and an MPhil. And the club, very gratefully, and I was very, very lucky, I agreed to fund my Masters, and Cammy put a lot of work into getting that up and running for myself. So in return for my Masters, I worked for the academy 3 nights a week, again, whilst collecting my data. That was a two-year Masters, the MPhil. That was at Heriot Watt in Edinburgh. So halfway, 1 year, just last summer into it, Cammy left the club, and I was fortunate enough to be promoted into that position of head of academy sports science at Kilmarnock, which is where I still am today, along with trying to finished my Masters, which brought along its own experiences and challenges.
And we'll touch on those challenges shortly because I want to dive into that. But just to take you back to that initial mindset of the Masters pathway, I suppose, like the different types of Masters, what was your thinking behind that to go the route that you did?
I think that's a good question. There's lots of great top Masters out there in sport and science and medicine or in S&C. But for me, the opportunity to work within an academy setting 3 nights a week, and latterly I was even sort of introduced into the sort of full-time setup where we've got match day support and GPS handling for the under-18s. I wouldn't have got that I wouldn't have been able to commit as much time to that as if I had went down the sort of MSc top Masters route. So I would have lectures and different coursework to focus on, whereas the Masters I chose, it was purely working on your thesis, your research, and the research I'd done could then benefit the club and the academy in a way. So it just kind of gave me a more real life setting of the science and then how to apply that into practice, and gave me the best of both worlds because obviously I had never really coached young athletes before, and that was something new to me and a great experience, and probably stands me in good stead to where I got to today.
Yeah, I think it's good to discuss that time in the career, isn't it, when you've got these choices to make. And we did the recent episode with Liam Anderson, and he spoke about the Masters process and some of the considerations that you've got to make. And it's tough, isn't it, when you've got that decision to make, whether you know you're making the right decision or not, and you don't really know at the time, do you? So I think it's great to reach out to practitioners like yourself and get your experience when you've been through that process. And just to tie in with that as well, one thing that I wanted to touch on is the challenges. So you've briefly mentioned just a few of the challenges that you faced along throughout the process. And again, just referring back to Liam, he talked about all the different challenges that he faced in terms of time and getting home and being knackered. But then that's the time that you've got to do more research and all the rest of it. And it does become quite consuming. So again, I think it's great for practitioners to hear you guys speak about your experiences and take that into consideration before making the decision. But can you just take us through some of the challenges that you faced?
Yeah, of course. So obviously, as you mentioned, anyone working in an academy setting will know my job now with the sort of under-18s. They are full-time during the day players. So we're in 9 o'clock in the morning, same time as everybody else. But the academy players, the boys that go to school during the day, are obviously still coming in late afternoon and into the evening. So you can be down or working at the club for 12 hours a day, 3-4 days a week. As you were saying there, you then need to come home at night and focus on your research, whether that's for a discussion part of your thesis or a literature review, and also find the time. Another challenge was finding people you could rely on and trust on to help you with the data collection process. I was collecting the data at Kilmarnock, so it kind of tied in with my work at the academy, but there were still occasions I would have to travel to another 16s away match to use the GPS or collect data there, and have people you can rely on that you know the other squads you're not with on that evening are going to still get the same level of scientific support and what we can offer to the club. So I think building trust and finding good people around about you to help with the data collection process was something that took a bit of time to get people to understand. But I must say the club were great and understood why I needed to do that and why I had to be there over that certain period of time. And just as you said, the timing of it, try to find time to sit when you're knackered, you're tired, to do your research and write a good thesis. Was challenging, but definitely worth it in the end.
And I know you touched on it again before, but you had your changing role as well during that time. Yeah.
So I went from part-time to full-time during the Masters. So part-time it was more manageable because I had the days to do my Masters work, my thesis, and then I was working at the academy at night. And when it went to full-time, that's when it got challenging because I was at the club a lot more often, 40, 50 hours a week, whatever it may be.
And then if we go into some specifics on your research now as well. So if you just give us a bit of an overview on some of your research, and then we'll dive into some of the application to practice as well.
Yep, no worries. So My research, we were quite lucky at the club. We have a nod board and a groin bar, and if you look at some of the research run about that, the majority of stuff done it so far is in adult footballers and adult athletes. There's not so much been done into adolescent populations, or especially adolescent footballers. So that was kind of the gap in the research I seen to go into and explore a wee bit more. So the first part of the research was really to establish the reliability of the nod board and the groin bar in a population of adolescent footballers, establish some thresholds for real change, whether that be eccentric hamstring strength or abductor strength, that we can make decisions on their load and their programming. So once we had kind of established those thresholds for real change, the next part was then to collect training load data, involved GPS, heart rate, RPE, alongside on nod board and groin bar scores over a 4-week period, assessed how they changed in relation to the changes in training load that the players had over a month. And then that probably gives more questions as well. Okay, so if that's over a month, how does that look over 6 months, over a whole season? And it should hopefully really just aid the sort of planning and periodisation of training for practitioners and S&C coaches out there, if that is the kind of monitoring system they decide to use for their players.
And then in terms of like some applications, so what was how has it affected your practice going forward? Because that's what I'm interested to see is the research that you did. If we take both the nod board and the groin bar, like what was the difference between how you worked before and how you work now?
So once I had sort of learned myself how to do the reliability sort of statistical analysis and calculate those thresholds for real change, there's many ways you can do it. We looked at typical error. We also looked at the calculating the smallest worthwhile change, and we can look at minimal defectable change as well. Sorry, and you can look at both. We kind of looked at the largest one, which was in our case typical error, and say, okay, we'll set that as our threshold for real change. I could then apply that to my testing with the under 18s at the club, the full-time players. I tried to test them 6 to 8 weeks with their nod board and groin bar scores. And just for example, if we had our typical error set at 30 newtons, if we seen a change greater than 30 newtons in an eccentric hamstring test, we could then say with a bit more confidence, yeah, that is a real increase in eccentric hamstring strength. If it was below the 30 newtons, we would say, okay, yeah, you've increased by 10, 15, but we don't know, we can't say with confidence that that is a real change in your eccentric hamstring strength. And just basically try to relay that back to the players. You've got to speak in their language, and they're not going to be interested in newtons and nod board and reliability. So just basically nice and simple traffic lights, red, amber, green. If you were above the typical error, it was a green for a real improvement. Somewhere between the typical error either side and the amber zone, and then below, hopefully, which we don't like to see during the season, was a real decrease in lower body strength. And the boys have really caught on to that. They find it easy to look at the results. They're always looking for greens. They're always looking to improve. And that's something I've managed to roll out, just not in the nod board and groin bar, but how we look at lower limb power through CMJ jumps and their acceleration and speed tests on pitch. And it's something you could apply to any monitoring tools that you really had at a club, whether that be looking at yo-yo scores as well for more aerobic endurance-based tests as well. But from the reliability stuff as well, my masters has taught me how to sort of use that and calculate the Z scores for within our sort of under 18 age group. So the boys at our club, they're all FIFA daft. They all love FIFA. So I've came up with the idea of making, I don't know if you know, sort of wee radar graphs you get in FIFA that show speed, power, whatever it may be. So they all have their own radar graph now with their sort of physical attributes on it. And they love comparing it to one another. And as I say, it's just like speaking their language and getting your points across to them. Okay, what's your strengths? What's your weaknesses? And how do we change, or how do we adapt your program in the gym or your program in the pitch to get you from a below average to an average, or an average to above average within the squad, or get maybe your amber scores on the sort of the traffic light system up to greens. So that's really been a big benefit of my masters, is how I've used the research and the knowledge I've learned to then apply that into a real life setting with the players in terms of sort of physical capabilities and how they are monitored throughout the course of the season.
No, that's awesome, mate. I love that, and that you can see why players take to that as well, can't you? Because it's so simple, and like you say, it is their language, because a lot of them are playing on FIFA and they'll relate to it straight away. So it's very much something that can make sense to them without having to explain all the science and everything, which we don't want to really get caught up into.
Yeah, of course.
The other thing I was going to get you to talk through is, obviously it's going to be a little bit different at the moment, but we're talking in terms of a usual season without these crazy breaks. But in terms of how the week looks, and when I say that, I'm referring to when the players are working with things like the NordBod and the groin bar. How frequent are they hitting those exercises? What are the rep ranges? What are we looking like? What's a week look like?
So for the NordBall and groin bar, as I say, we look to test that every 6 to 8 weeks, along with their CMG and their sprint performance. I would then look at the NordBall and groin bar stuff. They look at where they sit on an average compared to the rest of the squad. In Scotland, we don't have a lot of sort of NordBall data for especially adolescent players to set almost national benchmarks, the way I know down south with sort of EPPP, they have benchmarks for different physical performance tests. We don't really have that up here, so we can only really base it on how they compare to themselves previously and how they compare to the rest of their squad. If there's somebody with a notable weakness on the NordBoard, we look for above kind of 300 newtons in our sort of full-time, fully matured players. More looking into that's maybe touching reserve players that are almost at 20, 21. If there is a noticeable drop below, say, the 300 newtons mark, we would look, okay, can we program more eccentric hamstring work into there, such as your RDLs or Nordics, and gradually progress that for 6 to 8 weeks in terms of, might be reps, it could be, if it's more strength-based work, we also look to increase the load with your usual 4x5, 5x5 and an RDL. Nordics I try to keep in every week anyway, more from a kind of injury prevention point of view. If the boys are strong enough to complete a Nordic, we do have some players that really struggle with Nordics, and we have to strip them back to more isometric work, sort of bridging, stuff like that, before they're able to do Nordics. And then on the flip side, you've got some players in our squad who insanely good at Nordics, can get all the way down and back up while holding a 10 kilo plate. It's incredible. So basically, they would look at individual scores in NordBoard and the groin bar, and within their gym program, I try to include at least one individual session to work on their weaknesses. Again, for if you've got a weakness in the abductors, we would be maybe looking for more sort of the Copenhagen work and bridging work in there. Percentage imbalance is another thing we look at between left and right hamstrings. If there's an obvious weakness in one of the left or right side, can we get more unilateral work into the players and the gym as well? And that's kind of just how we use the NordBoard groin bar, as well as CMG and sprint test. And if it is somebody that's maybe needs to work on acceleration of speed or more powerful, that can be also worked on pitch and in gym. That's just kind of how we use those tests to influence my practice and what our boys do on the pitch and in the gym.
No, I think that's a great breakdown, and like you say, it's the big picture, isn't it? With this monitoring, we're not just taking single tests or single data points. It does need to come from the big picture. But in terms of the setup at the club, is it just yourself, Academy Sports Science, or have you got people, other staff around you that are also helping you with that process? And then how does that look in terms of you getting, because you're talking there about basically individualizing some programs when players need to work on certain points. So how does that practically work for yourself?
With difficulty, if I'm honest, yeah. But with difficulty. Obviously, at the club at the moment, there's myself, sort of head of academy sports science. There's Ross Hughes, who is the first team sports scientist and does some good work with the older reserve players as well. But apart from that, there's no other full-time sports scientist, S&C coach at the club. I do have that come into the academy. 3 or 4 interns coming voluntary, just the way I did at the start, to get experience, who are maybe finishing masters courses or just finished their masters and are looking to kind of break their way into the industry. Well, just going back to what we talked about at the start, to the boys that do come in went down the sort of top masters process and don't have that same practical experience of coming into a club and delivering sessions to players. So it's given these boys that opportunity to come in. To individualise, it's easier for maybe one squad, whether it is your under 18s, to do that all the way down from 16s to 11 is challenging. Although we talk about individualisation for gym sessions, I sometimes wonder if we'd be lucky to maybe get a half-hour gym session with an under 14 squad. Are we better, instead of trying to individualise things for those sort of younger players, more a generic lower body strength session or fundamental movement skills? Can they overhead squat? Can they lunge? Can they hinge? Can they bridge? Can they brace? Stuff like that, instead of trying to work with an individual where there's another 14 boys in the background just doing their own thing. You can't have eyes in the back of your head, and that's difficult for not only myself but the guys that come in, the interns that help out at the club at night time as well.
No, I think that's a great point, because you've got to make the most out of your time and realise the amount of players that you're working with. Because in your role, I'm guessing you're covering, when you're talking about academy, what's the age group you're going down to?
All the way down to under 11s. So
Okay.
we're sort of part-time. So we have a junior academy, who's 11s to 12s, who maybe don't get as much sports science support as we would like, just due to staffing and times, because everyone kind of trains at the same time, same evenings. 13s to 16s that train, and then the sort of 18s are the sort of professional academy. They're full-time in during the day.
And then the other thing we were going to talk about is a part-time program comparing to a full-time program and some of the differences. And we were talking about players, but I think it'd be good initially to talk about staff as well, because you mentioned before about yourself going from a part-time, and I know you were full-time in terms of taking into consideration your masters as well. But if we're talking strictly your role at the club, part-time to a full-time role. So I think that's great to delve into, because there'll be a lot of people either wanting to go through that process of going from part-time to full-time, or as like an assistant to a lead of a department. So I think it'd be great to delve into that initially, in terms of the challenges, your mindset, the things that had to change for that shift.
Yeah, definitely. When I was working part-time, going full-time was obviously my goal. That was something I wanted to go into at the club. Part-time at the moment, we are in 3 nights a week. The boys train 3 nights a week, and we get 15 to 20 minutes at the start of each pitch-based session, which is quite a lot considering what you hear other clubs get with the players on pitch to deliver a sports science strength and conditioning programme. In that case, you were more planning for, in the sort of, I know Kev Patterson talked about it in your podcast a couple of weeks ago, the different phases as they grow and mature. What we could be guilty with was, okay, we've got some really good plyometric sessions. We'd do that for 3-4 weeks. It could then get dropped for another 3-4 weeks to work on something else, and you would bring it back, and you're almost having to bring those players back to the start each time at a part-time setting, just purely because you don't have that amount of time with them on pitch 5-6 days a week, which is different from when you go full-time with the players there. You're with the players every single day. We're in the gym with them most mornings, 3 to 4 mornings a week. Not always doing heavy strength sessions. It could just be a recovery session or more injury prevention based stuff. So the main difference was probably the management of load for the older players. I think an interesting point I took away from my masters is we found that 24 hours post match there was no differences in sort of lower body strength and speed performance in part-time players. They seem to, physically it seems anyway, fully recovered 24 hours post-match when they came in to train again. So I think I mentioned to you previously, what is really, why are we doing recovery sessions or foam rolling and wee spinning the bike with these part-time players when we've got limited training time as it is, when it seems that 24 hours post-match, they're maybe not as physically, or the physical attributes are maybe not as declined as what they would be in a full-time environment. Now that could be for a number of things due to pitch size, or some boys play 9-a-side, the really young groups. It could be quality of opponent, it could be travel, it could be a variety of different things. But I think definitely the management of load from part-time to full-time was the biggest jump, and more pressure. As people will know, if there's an injury, a soft tissue injury, the first thing we look at is there been a spike in training load. That maybe doesn't happen as much at a part-time setting when you're limited to staff and numbers and time you have on the pitch. Maybe more pressure, definitely more pressure at a full-time environment to push players on that are going to be physically capable and ready to go play, whether it be reserve football or hopefully eventually go on and play in the first team at Kilmarnock. The club is quite good at almost moving players up depending on their sort of physical attributes. It's maybe like a kind of mini bio-banding, not specifically. If we see a player who is in the under 14 age group but is just using purely their strength and size, the club is willing to push them up and challenge them a wee bit more. Sorry, I probably just went off on a wee tangent there talking about bio-banding, but more monster than the load, I would say, would be the biggest difference from part-time to full-time. And that's probably due to the facilities and the access to GPS and heart rate than what we have part-time.
No, I don't think that was a tangent at all, mate. I think it's great to touch on what it looks like practically for you. And I suppose the other thing I'd say with that is, and I'm sure you talk to your interns all the time about this sort of thing, but if you were to speak to interns or people in that similar sort of position that do want to make that step up to the similar role that you're in, what would be some advice? Like if you could speak to yourself back in that position without knowing that you're going to end up here right now, like what would be the advice and what are the sort of steps that you need to take that step up?
Yeah, I think during this lockdown period as well, it's given myself great time to do lots of CPD work, all the online webinars and courses have been going about. Advice was definitely to go out. I went out as early as my third year of my honours and get practical experience. It doesn't have to be delivering sessions or planning sessions, even if it's just shadowing at a first team level or even at a reserve level and seeing what a sports scientist or a strength conditioning coach does day to day, how they plan things. Ask lots and lots of questions. You become, I'm sure I was very annoying to Cammy and Andy when I first went in all these questions, but not just to accept answers from questions as okay, that's the norm. Challenge them, and can you do it in your own way, and is that right? Just because we do it that way with under 16s at this club doesn't necessarily mean this is way under 16s at another club are trained. So main advice would be go out and get practical experience as early as possible. Ask lots of questions. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. I think that at first I would maybe plan a session and think, oh no, I'm not sure if that's going to work. At academy level, that is the level we can make mistakes and maybe not get away with it, but it may not have as big an impact, especially if you're a first team and you do put on a session which is horrendous. You'll get caned for that, but maybe under 14s, 15s, you can get away with that a wee bit more and say, okay, I made mistakes, I can learn from it. I'll plan better for next week and move on. But is it all about getting out there and learning with the practical experience? Because I've learned so much more working in the field, out in the pitch and in the gym than I would have sitting in a lecture theatre.
No, I think that's great advice, and I think we all have to make those mistakes as well, don't we? We all have to have those
Yeah, of
sessions that
course.
bomb and that we feel like are just a disaster. Because time and time again, when I speak to coaches on here, they tell those same stories, and I think if they didn't have those stories to tell, obviously we don't enjoy it at the time. It doesn't feel nice when the sessions don't go well, but we have to have that, don't we? We have to put ourselves in those positions where we're uncomfortable, and you learn from it, don't you? And that's the way of progressing.
Yeah, of course. It's all about pushing yourself outside your comfort zone.
No, definitely. And just to tie in with that, you touched on CPD. What's your general approach to CPD? I know it's a bit different at the moment in lockdown. There's a bit more availability on webinars and things like that. So has
Yeah.
that been the sort of approach right now? But then also, what is your approach usually when you're busy, when you're in the club day to day? What's the approach for CPD?
Yeah, just now, as you say, it's more webinar based because that's all we can really do. When you are busy and stuff in the club day to day, we were quite fortunate within the sort of science and medical department, which tied in nicely with the first team guys. We've recently done, even just through Zoom, more CPD stuff that relates to issues at the club at a first team level as well, which has been good for me to see more from even like a sort of physio way of looking at things. It's been good for me to see tie in good with the sort of return to play stuff and the rehab on pitch. What's something I would like to do at the club, it's not something we do at the moment, is have almost with the interns that are still at uni and more, and whether that's picking a physical quality we want to work on, if it's a change of direction, agility, and everybody coming up with a session to go and deliver on pitch one night, and then we could talk about pros and cons, strengths and weaknesses of that session. How can we progress that? How can we progress that for not only individuals within age groups, but older age groups, younger age groups? It's not somewhere we're at yet. It's somewhere I would like to get to. But it's all about having the time. You're right, having the time on pitch and having the time where everybody's available to come in, because when you go in at 9 o'clock in the morning, the day, I know you can't be into 9 o'clock at night sometimes, but the day does fly by. You are non-stop. So finding that CPD during normal times can be a challenge, but it's definitely something we're looking to work on.
I think you made a great point there, though, in terms of utilising your staff as well and the people at your club. Because, we might not be able to reach out and go out to all these places and reach out to people that we're potentially getting to right now when everyone's shutting their houses. But everyone at every club will have some sort of practitioners around them, won't they? Whether you're in a first team environment, you got academy staff around you and vice versa. So I think that's a great point, is reaching out to these other practitioners and learning from each other.
Yeah, definitely. And like I was saying earlier about asking questions, it's something I still do now of first team sports scientist, first team physio, academy physio. Why are we doing that? Why does he need that but he doesn't need that? Just different questions, and then how I can sort of take that stuff and filter that down to the guys that deliver the academy program.
Yeah, definitely. And just finally, Jack, you've talked there about like CPD in particular, but how do you want to progress the program? So I'm sure you've seen it come quite a long way in the time that you've been at the club, but what's like the next step for you?
Yeah, definitely. Next step for me would be what I was kind of just mentioned briefly earlier. If our guys come in, and even myself, we plan a great plyometric session, an axle decel session, that could be it for maybe 3-4 weeks, and the players don't work on that again. And then we kind of think, right, well, we've not really progressed anywhere there. I think periodizing is what we do well at the 18s level. It's something that needs to get better at the 16s below level. So I think just maybe filtering more the stuff we do down from the under 18s, and how we, even the monitoring, the periodization of different training, different capabilities, is something that I would like to improve on going into next season for the part-time program. For sure, that would be probably the biggest one.
Awesome, mate. Well, I think we covered some good stuff there. And like I said, anyone going in and around the master's process, I think this is a must listen for them, because you give some great advice there, and tying in, like I said, with the previous episodes with people like Liam Anderson. I think There's some great advice for practitioners out there. But if people want to reach out, and I know with up in Scotland, you guys are, which proved in the network meeting, people are dying out to reach out to each other and share the information and the way you're working up there. So I do encourage people to get in touch with people like yourself, because I think you've shown today you're willing to share and learn from other people. So I do encourage people not to hold back. So just to tie in with that, where's the best place for people to get in touch?
Probably on Twitter. My Twitter's Jack Fergal 96. And as you say there, Ben, yeah, definitely anyone that's used not even the Nod Bold and Groin, but more different sort of monitoring tools within an academy setting. It's something we definitely need to get better at. I would be more than happy to discuss what I've sort of done so far, or what other clubs and what other people have done so far, and how we can tie that in and just make academies more efficient as a whole. Because I think in the current situation, academies could be more heavily relied on.
No, definitely, and that does seem the pattern, especially in Scotland as well. Because when we spoke to Steve Kinnean up at Hibs, and obviously Ollie Morgan at the Celtic meeting, that's definitely the pattern, isn't it? So I think it'd be great for the research and the way clubs are working to share that practice as well, and then for everyone to improve and the programs to constantly get better. So I really do appreciate you coming on, Jack. I think it's been great to chat with you, and hopefully people have taken plenty from it. And we'll stay in touch, mate.
Yeah, brilliant, Ben. Thanks for having us on, mate. Appreciate it.
Top man. Thanks, Jack.
No worries, mate. Cheers.